설정하는 그거 진짜 안 나오나 보네 이제.
This is the story of a man named Stanley. Stanley worked for a company in a big building where he was employee number 427. Employee number 427's job was simple. He sat at his desk in room 427 and he pushed buttons on a keyboard. Orders came to him through a monitor on his desk, telling him what buttons to push, how long to push them, and in what order. This is what employee 427 did every day of every month of every year. And although others might have considered it soul-rending, Stanley relished every moment that the orders came in, as though he had been made exactly for this job. And Stanley was happy. And then one day, something very peculiar happened. Something that would forever change Stanley.
스탠리
Something he
패러블
would never
2.
quite forget. He had been at his desk for nearly an hour when he realized that not one single order had arrived on the
Single
monitor for
order.
him to follow. No one had showed up to give him instructions, call a meeting, or even say hi. Never in all his years at the company had this happened, this complete isolation. Something was very clearly wrong. Shocked, frozen solid, Stanley found himself unable to move for the longest time. But as he came to his wits and regained his senses, he got up from his desk and stepped out of his office. All of his co-workers, oh please, are you really just doing this for the achievement? Click a door 5 times, is that all that you think an achievement is worth? No. I can't just give these merits away for such little effort. A measly 5 clicks. Now suppose you were to click the door 20 times. I would say that's the kind of effort that warrants recognition.
가자,
The confusion
양동아.
and the chaos all seemed to melt away as Stanley embraced the bucket. Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door. This was not the correct way to the meeting room, but Stanley had felt the bucket calling to him, telling him that the employee lounge was simply the place to be.
로이 라운지.
And here it was. Had the bucket turned out to be correct? Was this better than the meeting room? Yes, Stanley thought to himself. Yes, perhaps it truly was. How insightful the bucket turned out to be. No, never mind. The bucket was wrong. Stanley took the door on his left to go back to the meeting room.
거. 시도.
No, said the bucket. Don't go to the meeting room. Go somewhere else. The cargo lift, yes. Go there. Go to the cargo lift.
cargo lift. 떨어지는 것도 해봤었나 나? 여기도 가봤던 것 같은데 뭘 했고 뭘 안 했는지를 모르겠네. 음.
Okay, this is day number 295, tape number... I don't even know. I've lost track. Nothing feels real anymore. The longer I study this bucket, the less sense anything makes. The sheer euphoria I feel every time I pick it up. No matter how many times I've done it, it's always the same feeling. And the emptiness in my chest when I set it down. It doesn't make sense. There's no explanation for it. I still haven't figured out why I see the world so differently when this bucket is in my arms. Why everything feels so... What do I do with this treasure? I can monetize it. Yes. It's unthinkable the amounts of money people will pay for even just an hour with the bucket. This is my golden ticket. But I have to be careful, because as soon as this gets out, there's going to be a target on my back. Even now, I don't know who might be trying to get... What's that? Who's there?
뭐지? 그냥 아무것도 없는 그런 건가?
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean?
What
Stanley
could
decided to
it
go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
왜 끄면은 초기화 되나 보네. 한 3칸인가까지 했던 것 같은데.
Warmth
가자,
spread through
양동아.
Stanley's arms. With the bucket in his arms again, he was home. Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his... This was not the correct way to the meeting room, but Stanley had felt the bucket calling to him, telling him that the employee lounge was simply the place to be. And here it was. Had the bucket turned out to be correct? No, never mind. The bucket was wrong.
네가 말할
Stanley
틈을
took the
주지
door on his
않겠다.
left to go back to the meeting room.
No,
Said the bucket.
don't go to the meeting room. Go somewhere else. The cargo lift, yes. Go there. Go to the cargo lift.
여기서 뛰어내렸는데 벌금을 낼 수 있는 상태일까?
Good,
Said the bucket.
now ride the lift all the way to the top. There's something up there I need you to do.
Stanley did not question why or how this bucket was speaking to him. It should have alarmed him, of course, because buckets can't talk. But Stanley chose not to think about this obvious fact. He was firmly convinced that the bucket had spoken to him, and he unthinkingly did whatever the bucket asked.
전부 다 위험함. 어디야?
No, stop! Look there on the wall. You see, there's a sign right there. It says, no buckets past this point.
No
Stanley, how
buckets
could you think it was
past
okay to
this
bring the
point.
bucket here? Unless, what if the problem is that you actually don't know what is a bucket and what isn't a bucket? I suppose that would explain a lot about your behavior up to this point. Which, if that's true, well, my goodness, I think we have to do something about it. This misunderstanding could have dire consequences on the entire rest of the game if not addressed quickly and properly. So much of the impact of the story is dependent on your understanding of what is and isn't a bucket. Please, step in here for a moment.
시더. 이쪽에 서지 마시오. 가야 되나? 뭐 없나? 에이씨. Is this a bucket?
Now then, I'm going to run you through some test scenarios and you'll tell me whether or not the thing I'm showing you is a bucket. Simple enough, right? This should tell us everything we'll ever need to know about what is or is not a bucket. Okay, let's begin. Item 1. Is this a bucket?
예.
Incorrect. It is a hologram of a bucket, not an actual bucket.
예? 순 억지잖아.
Item 2. Is this a bucket?
예.
Incorrect. It is a 3D printed recreation of a bucket, not an actual bucket.
예?
Item 3. Is this a bucket?
예.
Correct. This is a bucket. Item 4. Is this a bucket?
아니,
Correct. This is a tractor and not a bucket. To be honest, I just sort of put this one in here as a gimme, but I was starting to get concerned that even this might be too much for you. Thank you for not making me look like an idiot. Okay, next one.
okay. Next one.
Is this a bucket?
아니,
Incorrect. This is a bucket.
예? 아니, 억지 부리지 마세요.
Item 6. Is this a bucket?
예.
Trick question. Both. Gotcha.
어떻게 둘 다 슈레딩거의
Hold on, I can't find the next one.
슈레딩거의 양동이?
Around here somewhere.
예.
Okay, you and I both know there isn't anything here. And I don't appreciate the implication that nothing is a bucket when we both clearly know that a bucket is something, and therefore nothing could possibly be something. Unless, in your twisted mind, have you somehow convinced yourself that a bucket is nothing? Answer me straight, Stanley. Do you believe that nothing is a bucket? You know what? I'm too confused to even sort it out. I've lost all sense of perspective. What is a bucket? What isn't a bucket? Mere moments ago I could answer these questions with confidence. And yet now I'm somewhat adrift. Do any of us know what a bucket is? Am I a bucket? Stanley, I can't keep doing this. I'm losing myself, and myself was all I ever had to begin with. I'm afraid the bucket is threatening to tear our relationship apart. I can't have that. I'm sorry. But I'm going to erase all buckets from the game entirely. Okay, here we go.
근데
What happened? Is everything gone? Why did everything disappear? Wait, was everything a bucket? Every single thing in the game was a bucket. Oh my God, I had no idea. How could... except me. I'm not a bucket after all. And you, Stanley, you're still here. You're not a bucket either. Oh, this is wonderful news. We're not buckets. Yes, I actually feel much more at ease right now. It's delightful to get some clarity on that issue, but it doesn't change the fact that we haven't got a game. So, tell you what, I'll reset everything and we'll put back all of the buckets, okay? And we'll know that it's all a bucket. But if you run into anyone else, maybe don't mention that. Who knows what that information might do to a person? All right, here we go.
이제 갖고 들어갈 수 있나?
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. Stanley picked up the bucket and smiled. He'd never be alone again, not truly alone, not with the bucket around. Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest. This was not the correct way to the meeting room, but Stanley had felt the bucket calling to him, telling him that the employee lounge was simply the place to be. And here it was. Had the bucket turned out to be correct? No, never mind. The bucket was wrong. Stanley took the door on his left to go back to the meeting room.
No,
Said the bucket.
don't go to the meeting room. Go somewhere else. The cargo lift. Good,
Said the bucket.
now ride the lift all the way to the top. There's something up there I need you to do.
Stanley did not question why or how this bucket was speaking to him. It should have alarmed him, of course, because buckets can't talk. But Stanley chose not to think about this obvious fact. He was firmly convinced that the bucket had spoken to him, and he unthinkingly did whatever the bucket asked. No, stop!
또 안 돼?
Look there on the wall, you see? There's a sign right there. It says, no buckets past this point. Stanley, how could you think it was okay to bring the bucket here? Unless, what if the problem is that you actually don't know what is a bucket and what isn't a bucket? I suppose that would explain a lot about your behavior up to this point. Which, if that's true, well, my goodness, I think we have to do...
리셋. 다시 시작. 행동이 없이 가보자.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
아, 근데 저거 뭐 게이지 더 채우면은 나오는 거.
When Stanley came to a set of two open doors, this was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it. Standing now in this incredible room, Stanley but eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left.
시도.
Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired years ago. Look, Stanley, I think perhaps we've gotten off on the wrong foot here. I'm not your enemy, really, I'm not. I realize that
Really, I'm
investing your
not.
trust in someone else can be difficult, but the fact is that the story has been about nothing but you. What? Really? I was in the middle of something. Do you have zero consideration for others? Are you that convinced that I want something bad to happen to you? Why, I don't know how to convince you of this, but I really do want to help you, to show you something beautiful. Look, let me prove it. Let me prove that I'm on your side. Give me a chance.
Give me a chance.
Now listen carefully, this is important. Stanley walked through the red door.
이거 있다.
You're getting close now, Stanley. You've nearly gotten all of the Figler and Marines. Very soon, you'll collect the last one, and then the first number will equal the second number, and that will be it. We'll be
That
different
will
people
be
by then.
it.
Different in the sense that we used to have none of them, and now we have them all. You can't go back to when you had no Figler and Marines. None of us can.
아까 빨간 문으로 가랬는데. 시도
Perhaps you misunderstood. Stanley walked through the red door.
시도
I still don't think we're communicating properly. Stanley walked through the red door.
레드 도 시도.
All right, fine. Go ahead, Stanley. You want to know so badly what's out there? You want to find out what lies at the end of this road you've chosen? Well, don't let me stop you. You see? There's nothing here. I haven't even finished building this section of the map because you were never supposed to be here in the first place. Broken rooms, exposed developer textures. Is this what you had wanted? Was it worth ruining the entire story I had written out specifically for you? Do you not think I put a lot of time into that? Because I did. And in the end, it was all for nothing. Because this is what you wanted to see. Help me here, Stanley. Help elucidate these strange and unknowable desires of yours. What would have made this game better? What did you want to see? Vehicles? Skill trees? Work with me. You've given me absolutely nothing so far. Tell you what. Let me take a stab in the dark at a new design, and you can give me some feedback. There we go. A third option. This already feels leaps ahead of where we were before. Go ahead, Stanley. Take it for a spin.
다른 데로 가야 되나 여기서? 아 근데 좀 궁금한데?
Okay, I'm going to stop you there. Now, tell me about your experience with this new version. Would you say that the game benefited from allowing you more choices? Feel free to be honest. I'm looking for some real critical feedback here.
4점 정도?
Okay, so we're getting somewhere. Clearly there's something here that speaks to you. If I can be honest here, I really don't have any idea where I'm going with this. This whole third door thing was just a stab in the dark. But I guess you're into it, so let's keep this party train rolling. Here, based on the data from your previous playthrough, I've compiled a new version. And to be perfectly candid, I think I've knocked it out of the park with this one. Let's take a look.
그건가 막 뭐야? 더 스탠리 패러블 월드와이드 리더우드. 아니 왜 막 다른 거 했다고 꼽죠? 만드셔야 만든가. 또 들어갈 거야 그럼.
Now, would you say that competitive leaderboard helped you feel motivated to keep walking through doors? Again, honest answers, please.
아 그럼요.
Hey, I nearly forgot. I've got a prototype of a new game I've been working on, and now would be a lovely opportunity to give it some playtesting. You wouldn't mind taking a look at it, would you? Perfect. Let me boot it up.
4시간 동안 그 애기 그건가?
In this game, the baby crawls left towards danger. You click the button to move him back to the right, and if he reaches the fire, you fail. It's a very meaningful game, all about the desperation and tedium of endlessly confronting the demands of family life. I think the art world will really take notice. But of course, the message of the game only becomes clear once you've been playing it for about 4 hours. So why don't you give it 4 hours of play to make sure it's effective? Be
아,
sure to
앞에
keep notes on your
이걸로
experience.
애기 그림으로 해. 좀 그러게. 아니 소리가 너무 크다. 안 할래. 미안.
You heartless bastard. Did you do it because you
Heartless
hate babies
bastard.
or purely to spite me? Because if it's the latter, well, I don't know what to do. I'm completely out of ideas. I can't think of a single thing that might improve the experience for me. I'm not even going to try. I'm out. I'm done. It's over. Thank you for playing. Your input was extremely valuable. Oh, hey, since my game was so awful, why don't we play
아 이거
someone else's
그거다.
game?
마이너
Ease the
크래프트랑
pain. Let's see.
포탈이랑
We have
시켜주는 거.
Yes, this seems like it'll work. Let's give it a shot.
Let's give it a shot.
Aha!
뭐야?
Fascinating. What do you think this game is about, Stanley? What's our backstory? What is our motivation? Well, it seems obvious to me that you are meant to play as a creepy man spying on innocent civilians below you from up high in your creep tower, perhaps for some sort of twisted erotic purpose.
게임이요.
Yes,
활동 많이
that must be
그렇고.
it. What a fascinating venture into the experience of total mental depravity. So far, I love everything about this game, Stanley. And it seems there's even more. Come, let's venture outward and see what else is out there.
게임인데 이게 뭐 숲 관리 뭐 그런 게임인가 보네. 원본이 있겠지 이것도?
Oh no.
No,
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 no, no, no, it
no, no,
can't be.
no. Can't be.
It is. It's an open world game. Good God, quickly block it off. Oh, thank goodness, Stanley. What a close call. You nearly wandered off into that thing, that big open, just wandering around, no right or wrong directions.
여기로
no
먼저
path
갈
to
걸.
follow. You can just go in any.
혼자 있었는데.
Oh, thank heavens we avoided it. We're out of the woods now, Stanley. Okay, I'm going to get us out of here. Let's find another game. Preferably something with walls. Something with nice, big,
먼저 거도
insurmountable walls.
깰라나?
Okay, I think this will be just the thing.
오.
Wonderful. See, this is exactly what I had in mind. Just
Oh,
a
look
nice
at
big
이거
box for you to run around in.
그거 아닌가?
There isn't any
자동차
possibility that you could get lost here.
자동차
Now
축복?
this is game design.
This
Stanley, if you
is
manage to
the
get
game
lost in this
design.
game, I will be phenomenally impressed. Okay, so what exactly do we do here? Let's see.
공이라도
There are
줘.
lots of cars here in the back, but obviously there's no racetrack. Okay, I'm seeing that there's a ball of some kind back here. Is this game sports ball? Stanley, I think it's sports ball. Oh, what fun. We shall run the bases and do a touchdown together. Yes, I think surely we must. Okay, Stanley, here's the ball. Have fun.
오. 가자. 너 좀 빨라졌는데? 가자. 골. 오케이.
Are you doing it? Are you winning? Is this fun? Is it better than my miserable little story that I worked so hard on? Stanley, I have a thought. And I realize I'm not a sportsologist, but if one ball generates a certain amount of raw adrenal pleasure, then surely multiple balls makes for an even more euphoric sports experience. I'm going to try it out. Here comes another ball. Yes! Oh,
Yes.
goodness, that really does feel amazing, doesn't it? Stanley, I'm like a child in a confectionery shop. I simply have to have more. I'm insatiable.
가시 그까지 아니잖아. 외국인이어가지고 모르나? 으씨. 야, 이게 훨씬
Enjoying this,
재밌다.
Stanley? Are you having fun?
이런
Is
게
this a real video
진짜
game?
비디오
Well, I
게임이지.
sure hope you're having a good time because guess what? It's over.
Ah.
That's right. Your little fun comes to an end. This is my game, and what I say goes. You get to have fun when I let you, Stanley. Besides, you need someone like me to set boundaries for you. Without rules or boundaries, video games are nothing. Yes, that's what I am. I am structure. I'm your sense of purpose. And since you decided you didn't want to play my game, now I don't want to play with you either. So,
게임
goodbye,
뭐지?
Stanley. I'm leaving. See how you
나무위키에
like it when I'm not around to set the rules. Somehow, I don't think you'll enjoy it as much, but who knows? You're an inventive kid, you'll come up with something. After all, you're the one who knows best. Take care, Stanley.
Take care, Stanley. 삐지냐. 어떻게 이제. 어? 이거? 자동차 소리 같은 게 났는데. 올 때 들어가야 되나? 진짜 근데 소리 나긴 나는데. 어? 뭐야? 디스코드. 올 때로 가야 되나? 오, 한국이다. 한국이다. 빨간 문으로 가라 했으니까 파란색 들어가자.
Hold on. What are you doing?
What are you doing?
Stanley, don't do that. I can't follow you there. I can't help you. How will you write a story without me? You can't do it. You know that. Stanley.
떨어진다. 오. 원래 이런 게 있었나? 조금 여기로 와지는 것 같은데. 2, 3. 어? 내 번호. 왜 저? 127번. 방도 못이 써줬어. 어디지? 아닌가 봐. 오씨.
I wonder what he found. If what he wanted was to be the leading man in his own story, well, perhaps he's gotten it. Down in wherever he is right now. I wonder if he's happy with his choice, and if he's learned the heavy cost that comes with it. He'll understand soon what I was trying to tell him. He needs me. Someone who will wrap everything up at the end, to make sense out of the chaos and the fear and the confusion. That's who I am. That is what I mean to this world. Oh, yes. Yes, I'll be back. There's no other way. Once this ends, after it all comes to a close, then I'll be back.
The end will be here soon. Very soon. I can wait.
네.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
네, 스탠리가 없어졌는데 넌 누구한테 말하냐? 나레이터 양반? 그러면은 양동이를 양동이를 갖고 저 문을 못 들어가잖아. 뭐 할 수 있지?
The good
그냥
old bucket. Just Stanley and the bucket. Off on another thrilling
거기
adventure
가봐야
together.
그냥 올라가 봐요. 뭐야? 이거 다른데? 길이? 아닌가? 아닌데? 다른데? 하나색이야.
Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest,
So-
and this was not the correct way to the meeting room. But Stanley had felt the bucket calling to him, telling him that the employee lounge was simply the place to be. And here it was. Had the bucket turned out to be correct? No, never mind. The bucket was wrong.
아닌데.
Stanley took the door on his left to go back to the meeting room.
쉬도.
No, said the bucket. Don't go to the meeting
여기도
room.
가봤나?
Go somewhere else. The cargo lift, yes. Go there. Go to the... Good, said the bucket. Now ride the lift all the way to the top. There's something up there I need you to do.
Stanley did not question why or how this bucket was speaking to him. It should have alarmed him, of course, because buckets can't talk. But Stanley chose not to think about this obvious fact. He was firmly convinced that the bucket had spoken to him, and he unthinkingly
기억이래
did whatever the
못하잖아.
bucket asked.
열려 있는데.
In here,
Said the bucket.
go into this dark room over here.
Stanley once again obeyed blindly.
Now pick up the phone,
Said the bucket.
pick up the phone, and it will take us back home, where we can go about life together.
근데 이거 원래 이거 뭐 뽑는 거 있지 않나 저거? 한번 받아보자. 반갑습니다.
This is the sad story of a man named Stanley and his bucket. Once upon a time, I gave Stanley a bucket because I thought he was lonely and could use a friend. And then, very distressingly, he began to believe the bucket could speak to him.
뭐야? 날 속인 거였어? 띵동. 띵동. 근데 아니 잘한다. 못 뜨는데? 아, 양동이 지금 왜 되나 봐. 아, 이래서 내 직장에 데려가.
The Stanley Parable Reassurance Bucket was merely meant to provide the comforting glow of companionship. It doesn't literally talk and give you orders. Whatever Stanley is hearing the bucket say to him is just in his head.
다시 돌아가라고? 뒤로. 컴퓨터 끄지도 못하네. 에이씨. 들어왔어. 야,
Lately, I've been concerned about him. Wouldn't you be concerned as well? To see him delusional like this, obsessing over an inanimate metal object? I want to say something to him, but I don't know how I can convince him. I don't know if he'll listen to me.
아니 아까 걔는 뭐 막 연구하는 애도 있더만 나한테 온 거래.
Oh, I'll try anyway. Stanley, can you hear me? Listen to me.
Can you hear
It's
me?
just a bucket. It can't think, it can't talk. All it will ever truly do for you is effectively transfer a liquid from one location to a different location. That's it. It doesn't do anything else.
뭐 할 수 있는 게 없어 내가.
You see, he's not listening. He's still taking orders from the bucket. You know, once upon a time it was me he took orders from. Me he trusted and listened to. Now all he cares about is his awful bucket. This stupid hunk of metal. It's sad. I suppose he doesn't need me anymore. From now on, he's just going to cling to this bucket, this cold, empty bucket, this sort of shiny bucket. Well, I'll give it this. The bucket does have a nice shine to it.
안 돌아갈 순 없나? 안 하면 하나? 또?
Yes, I suppose on closer inspection that it doesn't quite look like your average hardware store bucket. It's just a little more, what am I trying to say? Sturdier, more capable of transporting liquid. Like it would be better at moving an amount of water from one room to another. Oh my God, what am I saying? Better at carrying water from room to room. It's a bucket. It's literally just a bucket. Why do I feel some need to point out the ways in which it's so much more than just a regular bucket?
지도 오염됐죠? 나한테 뭐라 하더니?
Oh no, I'm having feelings for the bucket. No. What's going on? Why do I want to be with the bucket? Hear what the bucket has to say. Do anything it asks. What's wrong with me? I don't understand. Perhaps if I had the bucket, this would be less confusing. Yes, the bucket could tell me what to do in this troublesome situation.
문이 열렸다. 시간이 계속 똑같아. 아니네? 13분 지났다.
Stanley, give me the bucket. Give it to me. Give me the bucket, Stanley. I need it. Give it to me now. Give it or I'll...
네, 가마. 다시 이래. 전화 왔다.
Hello. This is a recorded message scheduled either by you or a person in your place of work. The purpose of this message is to warn you about the dangers of recorded messages. If at any time you believe you are listening to a recorded message, please terminate it immediately and cease all flow of information from the recorded message into your perceptual sphere. Thank you, and have a pleasant day.
뭐야? 근데 이걸 이미 들은 순간 안 되는 거 아니야? 니도 아니 뭐지요? 폴리탄 계단 같은 건가? 근데 말을 안 해. 말 좀 해봐. 무서워잉.
Where are we going today? The bucket asked. Stanley just smiled. Anywhere they went together would be perfectly fine with him. Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his... This was not the correct way to the meeting room, but Stanley had felt the bucket calling to him, telling him that the employee lounge was simply the place to be. And here it was. Had the bucket turned out to be correct? No, never mind. The
오,
bucket was wrong.
바로 이렇게
Stanley took the door on his
지체 없이
neck to go
가면은
back to the meeting room.
자연스럽게 저렇게 되는구나.
No, said the bucket. Don't go to the meeting room. Go somewhere else.
뛰어내려.
The cargo lift, yes.
열렸어.
Go there. Good. But Stanley feared that any path he walked might lead to the separation of himself and the bucket, his dearest friend. So he threw himself to his death, that they might die in one another's arms. How deeply touching.
How deeply touching. 양동이를 갖고 여기에 계속 가만히 있을 수 있나?
Stanley decided to go to the meeting room to check on his co-workers. He never functioned well by himself and constantly needed support and guidance from others. So the thought of total solitude
뭐야?
was terrifying to him. No matter how hard Stanley
미쳤나?
looked, he couldn't find a trace of his co-workers.
말을 그렇게 못되게
A good
하네요.
bucket, a strong bucket, a humble bucket, a committed bucket, a bucket of culture and distinction.
옛날에 여기도 뭐 비벼서 나가지지 않나? 됐다.
Yes, whispered the
Yes.
bucket into Stanley's ear. We've done it. We've escaped from that dull office and that pesky narrator. At last, out here in the white void, we are alone. Now, and for the first time, I can reveal to you my true self. The bucket began to tell Stanley of its life and its history, of the countless wars it witnessed, desecrating the land and lives of untold numbers of innocent humans, and the bucket's own complicity therein, of sadness and regret, and the many years it spent dwelling on the actions it might have taken to curb the madness and the decay, if only it had been stronger, of hope and redemption, and its crusade to uplift the stock of life for the common man, to manifest justice where none existed, and the bittersweet reality of time, to see one's dreams and wishes met halfway, meted out in parcels like charity, and abandoned as soon as the warm glow of inspiration begins to dim. The opportunities to do so much more. There was so much it could have done, perhaps, the bucket wondered to itself. Perhaps, if it had seen its own darkness with a clearer perception. This was way too much for Stanley. What are you talking about? He screamed. You're a bucket! To this, the bucket furrowed its brow. No, said the bucket. Not since the evil wizard Gambhorata first ensnared me in his machinations as payback for the sacred amulet I stole from his treasured vaults. I was young back then and could not conceive the ramifications of... No! Stanley screamed even louder this time. This is stupid! You are a bucket! This is so stupid! Why are we even doing this? As Stanley screamed and screamed and screamed, the bucket revealed its true form, transforming into a mighty beast of untold power, its fangs glistening like...
뭔 소린데?
My God, Stanley, you did it. You saved us from the bucket. Thank God you already had all 12 emblems of sages and knew the incantations to summon their true power.
이러는데
Otherwise, we would have easily been overwhelmed by the bucket's power. I'm speechless. You've demonstrated such bravery here today. Come, let's restart the game, and we'll agree to never again go trifling with this bucket, nor the dark magic cast away inside of it.
그냥도 가지나 저기?
Wait, Stanley thought to himself. Am I sure that the orders stopped coming in? How is that possible?
They never stopped. Surely I was mistaken.
그래.
No, no, the orders were still missing. For now.
가만히 있으면 그 엔딩 나오겠지. 아까 거기 다 그냥 가보자.
At first, Stanley assumed he'd broken the map until he heard this narration and realized it was part of the game's design all along. He then praised the game for its insightful and witty commentary into the nature of video game structure and its examination of structural narrative tropes. So, now that you're here, what do you think? Isn't this a fun and unique place to be? Why don't we take a minute just to drink it all in? Okay, I'm over it now. What do you think? Are you sick of this gag yet?
지겨워. 아니요.
Then in that case, we'll continue. But now, here comes the real question. What do you think would have happened if you had told me that you wanted this to stop? Do you think it would have been particularly different? Would I have taken the same idea but rephrased it superficially to fit that answer? Perhaps you never would even have thought of it if I hadn't brought up the issue in the first place. Oh,
근데
now
왜 앞에
think about
자막이
it.
다르게 나오냐?
Would it be worth it for
앞에
you
게
to
또 나오네.
restart and then come back here just to do the other option? Clearly, this whole gag takes some time. What if the other option is even longer? How long will you spend in total just to have heard all the narration? Oh, and this is rich. Perhaps you've just played the other option, and now you've come to see what happens in this one. So, what do you think? Which choice was the better one? Imagine if you had selected continue on your first playthrough, how tantalizing it would be not knowing what happens when you pick the other option. Indeed, you are one of the lucky ones. Though if the other option is really miserable to listen to, then perhaps you're not. In fact, I'm just going to say that no one who's listening to this is lucky. Well now, I've built up the other options so much that I'm going to stop talking and leave you to your decision whether to come back here, continue with the game, or just sit in this spot forever and ever.
Ever
Cheers.
and ever. 예. 다시 시켜주세요. 재시작해야 되나? 에라이. 방금 머시기는 이제 뭐야? 짧아.
The embrace of an old friend. Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his This was not the correct way to the meeting room, but Stanley had felt the bucket calling to him, telling him that the employee lounge was simply the place to be. And here it was. Had the bucket turned out to be correct? No, never
Okay.
mind. The bucket was wrong.
친절하게 쫓다 놔주네.
Stanley took the door on his left to go back to the meeting room.
여기 이 길 가는 것도 해봤나 내가?
No,
Said the bucket.
don't go to the meeting room. Go somewhere else. The cargo lift, yes. Go there. Go to the cargo lift.
가보자. 아 여기 그거잖아. 테이프. 씨. 바보냐? 다시 해.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
그러면
The bucket made Stanley want to be a better man and a better co-worker. In time, perhaps, he would become both of those things.
또 계속 다르네.
Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his This was not the correct way to the meeting room, but Stanley had felt the bucket calling to him, telling him that the employee lounge was simply the place to be. And here it was. Had the
그래서 이제
bucket turned out to be
왼쪽으로
correct? No, never mind. The bucket was wrong. Stanley took the door on his left to go back, and so the two of them detoured through the maintenance section and walked straight ahead to the opposite door.
이거 틀어. 되지 않았나? 치도 내려갑니다.
Oh, good Stanley. I'm glad you found your way here. I knew you'd find this
Oh,
place
well.
eventually. You see, your friends and I are concerned for you, Stanley.
여기랑
We've come together here because we care about you
분이랑.
very much. It's this bucket you're carrying around everywhere. The bucket isn't even from the original Stanley Parable. It's just sequel content. We're the ones that matter,
content.
Stanley. Classic characters from the first game, like the Adventure Line and the Broom Closet.
이게
Because that's what fans want
어디가
from a
나온
sequel.
거더라
They
이게?
want more of their favorite jokes, not this bucket that they've never seen before. Yes, I know I'm the one who gave you the bucket, but you're spending too much time with it. Don't you want another story involving the Adventure Line? We could make the Adventure Line go somewhere new. Yes, yes, that's what the fans want. Let's do it.
또건 여기는 가만히 있어도 뭐 없나? 왜요? 갑시다.
Whee! Look at that wacky line. Who knows where it'll go off to next? Oh, and it played some silly music as well.
올라가는 거.
Now this is what the Stanley Parable is all about. Don't you remember all those great jokes from the original dialogue?
Also, Stanley is addicted to drugs and hookers.
Yes, it's as classic now as it was back then. Let's do it for the fans, Stanley. Let's
대선
give them more
없었던 것
content
같은데 내가
exactly like this.
기억하기로.
But if we want to do that, you're going to have to give something up. Don't you get it, Stanley? We need to get rid of the bucket. That's why I'm very proud to introduce a brand new character.
brand new
This
character.
is the Bucket Destroyer. I think it'll make a wonderful new addition to the rich lore of the Stanley Parable. True, it also was not in the original game, but it's such a well-fleshed-out character with so much personality that to me it already feels as though it's been part of the cast all along. Don't you agree? Can you guess what the Bucket Destroyer does? Surely you don't need me to spell it out for you. Go ahead now, Stanley. Say goodbye to the bucket, and then pop it into the machine when you're ready. Now listen to me. It's crucial that you give it the bucket. I don't know what the Bucket Destroyer will do if it can't destroy your bucket. Destroying buckets is all it knows. That is its singular personality trait. Sure, I can hear you saying, how does a character with only one personality trait deserve to join the pantheon of beloved Stanley Parable characters? Well, you see, if you were to really explore the Bucket Destroyer, you would see that its desire to crush buckets is so densely loaded with complexity and nuance that it's really like 10 personality traits. What other object in this game can you even say that about? The Broom Closet? Certainly not. I wonder what sort of Bucket Destroyer merchandise the fans will be clamoring for after this. Okay, the Bucket Destroyer is getting very upset now. You'll have to hurry and feed it. We can't get back to the classic Stanley Parable characters like the Adventure Line or the Bucket Destroyer until you crush that damn bucket. Quickly now, the fans are waiting. Do it, the fans, Stanley. Give the fans what they want. Hurry and... The bucket destroyer. My prized creation. You had so much potential. We were going to do such marvelous things with you, tell such spellbinding stories about you. All of it squandered now. Goodbye, new friend. For the moment in time that you were here, you were magnificent.
Magnificent. 넣어볼까?
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. Not everyone is so lucky to have a bucket, but Stanley is a very lucky fellow. Very lucky indeed. Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his... This was not the correct way to the meeting room, but Stanley had felt the bucket calling to him, telling him that the employee lounge was simply the place to be. And here it was. Had the bucket turned out to be correct? No, never mind. The bucket was wrong. Stanley took the door on his left to go, and so the two of them detoured through the maintenance section and walked straight ahead to the opposite door. Oh, good Stanley. I'm glad you found your way here. I knew you'd find this place eventually. You see, your friends and I are concerned for you, Stanley. We've come together here because we care about you very much. It's this bucket you're carrying around everywhere. The bucket isn't even from the original Stanley Parable. It's just sequel content. We're the ones that matter, Stanley. Classic characters from the first game, like the Adventure Line and the Broom Closet. Because that's what fans want from a sequel. They want more of their favorite jokes, not this bucket that they've never seen before. Yes, I know I'm the one who gave you the bucket, but you're spending too much time with it. Don't you want another story involving the Adventure Line? We could make the Adventure Line go somewhere new. Yes, yes, that's what the fans want. Let's do it. Whee! Look at that wacky line. Who knows where it'll go off to next? Oh, and it played some silly music as well. Now this is what the Stanley Parable is all about. Don't you remember all those great jokes from the original dialogue?
Also, Stanley is addicted to drugs and hookers.
Yes, it's as classic now as it was back then. Let's do it for the fans, Stanley. Let's give them more content exactly like this. But if we want to do that, you're going to have to give something. Don't you get it, Stanley? We need to get rid of the bucket. That's why I'm very proud to introduce a brand new character. This is the Bucket Destroyer. I think it'll make a wonderful new addition to the rich lore of the Stanley Parable. True, it also was not in the original game, but it's such a well-fleshed-out character with so much personality that to me, it already feels as though it's been part of the cast all along. Don't you agree? Can you guess what the Bucket Destroyer does? Surely you don't need me to spell it out for you. Go ahead now, Stanley. Say goodbye to the bucket, and then pop it into the machine when you're ready.
못 넣었나봐.
Now listen to me. It's crucial that you give it the bucket. I don't know what the Bucket Destroyer will do if it can't destroy it.
에라이. 뭐 남았지?
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean?
아 근데
Stanley
그러면
decided
이거
to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
게이지 그거 나올 때까지
It takes a lot of humility to carry a bucket so
리셋해야 되나?
magnificent. Stanley checked his ego and then proceeded onward. Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left.
entered the door on his left. 계단. 여기 지금 화장실 계단 그건가?
Coming to a
내려가야지.
staircase, Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office.
시도.
But Stanley just couldn't do it. He considered the possibility of facing his boss, admitting he had left his post during work hours. He might be fired for that. And in such a competitive economy, why had he taken that risk? All because he believed everyone had vanished? His boss would think he was crazy. And then something occurred to Stanley. Maybe, he thought to himself, maybe I am crazy. He looked down at the bucket in his arms. Am I crazy? He asked the bucket. The bucket returned his gaze, but said nothing at all. That's strange, Stanley thought. Usually the bucket is a source of guidance and wisdom for me in difficult times such as these. He held the bucket close, yet felt none of its familiar reassurance and comfort. And that's when Stanley realized, this isn't my bucket. It's just a normal, everyday bucket. Someone else's bucket, perhaps. How did I end up with someone else's bucket? This is all terribly wrong.
이것
Surely
때문에
no
미치는
good
거야?
would come from this. Who knows what sorts of bizarre
엉덩이
hallucinations Stanley
섰어.
might experience without the psychologically grounding presence of his bucket. And indeed, now he noticed that the rooms were repeating, which was, of course, very odd.
컵이라도.
Now he felt himself floating off the ground. Oh, gracious, he exclaimed. Without my bucket, I've gone truly mad. Where is it? I must find it. Far off in the distance now, he heard it, calling to him.
Stanley! Stanley, it's me, the bucket.
Could it truly be? He rushed forward from room to room, passing by one bucket after the next. None of them were his.
Whoa.
None of them were his special bucket.
Come to me, Stanley. Find me.
He had to find the bucket. He had to return to his old friend. It was the only way to truly restore his sanity. And then suddenly, he froze dead in his tracks. He knew where the voice of the bucket had been coming from. The real bucket was inside of him all along. It was incredibly painful. Stanley doubled over in agony and blacked out. This is the story of a woman named Mariella. Mariella woke up on a day like any other. She arose, got dressed, picked up her bucket of comfort and security, and walked to her place of work. But on this particular day, her walk was interrupted by the body of a man who had stumbled through town, talking and screaming to himself, and then collapsed dead on the sidewalk. Right away, she knew what the problem was. This man had no bucket. Of course he'd gone mad, ranting and raving about a narrator describing all of his actions and how everything is predetermined and free will is an illusion and it's all just a video game. It could all have been prevented if only he'd taken his bucket with him. Perhaps he didn't even realize he'd forgotten his bucket at home in the first place. How cruel the world can be, Mariella thought, and she hugged her own bucket even tighter. But of course, she had no time for this. There were a myriad of confusing problems she would soon have to confront at work, for which her bucket would provide absolute guidance and total clarity on everything. Heck yes, she thought to herself, my life kicks ass. And she backflipped all the way to work.
All the way to work.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
찾았다, 내 엉덩이.
Stanley cradled the bucket in a gentle embrace, protective yet delicate, assertive yet compassionate. Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left.
계단. 계단은 여기 말고 또
Coming to a
어디 있지?
staircase, Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office.
있는 건 먹었고. 원래 무슨 뭐니 이렇게 있지 않았나? 이것도 바뀌네. 블랙 음료가 엘리베이터는 탔던 것 같고 전에.
Step
그래 맞아 이거 있었어. 제대로 기억하고 있었구만. 이건 어떻게 되지? 오. 멈춰. 누구야? 돌아가. 원래 말 안 하나 이렇게? 다른 문이 열렸다. 어? 왜 나올리? 아 이건가 보다. 여기 계단이네. 754. 754층이야? 겁나 높네. 755. 피규어 줘. 이건 유튜브 할 때도 못 본 것 같은데 우리 나무위키에서 봤나 내가 이거를. 계단이 어디지? 한참만 더. 탈출 포드? 한번더 이렇게 봐야겠다. 있긴 됐다. 아 이거 혼자 가봐야겠다. 원래는 스탠리가 타고 가는 건가? 웃기네.
all of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean?
운동이
Stanley
앞서가만
decided to
가보고.
go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had
뭐야?
simply missed a memo.
진짜 보내서 없어진 거야? 좋겠네. 어떡하지? 양동이 어디서 나왔더라? 그 무슨 세계 패러블 2 어쩌고. 다시 봐야겠다 내가 한 거.
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
여기 들어가면 다시 있을라나?
Stanley stepped into the broom closet, but there was nothing here, so he turned around and got back on track. Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
바뀌나 이거? 바뀌네. Stanley, one is for Stanley. One is of course. 다시 한번 쓱.
Stepping in.
혼자 가보자. 나무위키에서 봤나봐 아무래도. 아, 저 양동이 어떻게 다시 찾아오냐. 아. You are now living. 아까 여기도 못 갔나? 누가? 뭐야 또? 맛있는 곶감을 주세요. 아, 이걸 여기서 보는 거구나. 다 똑같네 계속. 432번이네. 그렇구만. 나무위키로 본 게 맞다 그러면. 가자. 탈출이야. 이 거지 같은 회사에서 도망치고 말겠어. 뭐야? 아니 끝이야? 뭐 없어? 네.
Wait, Stanley thought to himself. Am I sure that the orders stopped coming in? How is that possible? They never stopped. Surely I was mistaken.
다 이렇게 바뀌어서 붙다가 약간 안 그러는데? 우와 다시 줬다. 얘는 왜 안 켜져 있어? 그렇다면 오늘은 여기까지. 재미가 있었들.